Hello and welcome to my guide to Malkorok on Flex difficulty. So this is actually a pretty... It's a weird fight. It's easy, but if you mess up the mechanics you will die. It's pretty much that simple. It's a two-phase fight which moves in a cycle with a relatively harsh 6-minute enrage timer. So the first phase is called Might of the Warcraft. His main mechanic here is called Ancient Miasma. This causes all healing done to be absorbed as a shield, and this shield will cap out at 100% of players' maximum health. All raid members take around 21k damage per second, so healers need to be very sure that they keep damage per 2 seconds, so healers need to be very sure that they keep everyone's shields topped off. If you take damage greater than your maximum amount of health, then it will bypass the shield and that will kill you. This is really only relevant to one ability. Now what this means is that if your actual health pool starts to go down, then it won't be able to be healed back up since all healing goes towards the shield. So yeah, it's definitely just more of a healer mechanic, honestly. If you're DPS or a tank, things probably won't change that much for you. Now, in addition to this big sort of mechanic, there's also a bunch of abilities. The first is called Fatal Strike. This is the tank swap mechanic, so you'll just have to swap out of it when the tanks feel comfortable, and bear in mind that the debuff stays for 30 seconds. It causes you to take 10% additional damage, and it stacks, so just the usual sort of thing. Now, the next thing is called Seismic Slam. This will blast you up into the air. It's pretty much a rumble on your feet, you get popped up into the air and then you land. That's really it. It's not much of a mechanic, honestly. Any classes that can avoid this damage, such as hunters by using disengage, should do so, although there's really not a giant amount that you can do about it. Now the next thing is called Imploding Energy, and this is one of the things which can wipe your raid. There are void zones which appear on the floor, and they will damage anyone who stands in them. Pretty heavy damage actually. However, if nobody stands in one, then the damage is applied to the entire raid, meaning someone needs to stand in each of the ones that spawn. Of course it's flex, so a different amount may spawn depending on the amount of players you have. Now it can sometimes be confusing when two players go for the same one, but just remember it's better that two players get hit than the entire raid, because if the entire raid's hit, depending on your tank's health, it could just kill the tank, you waste your CR, and it could very easily lead to a wipe, which is not good. Now the next thing is Arcing Smash and Breath of Yash, and these two abilities are very closely tied together. Now Arcing Smash is a conal attack. This will do pretty heavy damage in a cone, however it can be stepped out of, which you should do, although it's no biggie if it does hit you, honestly. Now he will do 3 of these, and then he will do a Breath of Yash. Now this does happen over a pretty decent period of time, so it's not like he does 3 Arcing Smashes in a row and then you get Breath. It does take about like a minute or so, maybe 30 seconds, whatever. So the Breath will happen on the location of the previous 3 Arcing Smashes, and it will do enough damage to kill anyone inside it. So whenever an Arcing Smash is done, a player should mark its location via raid marker. That way you will know where Arcing Smashes have previously happened. So by the 3rd Arcing Smash you will know where all 3 of the breaths will happen, and you'll be able to move to the side of the raid where there is as much room as possible. Then he will do Breath of Yash. It'll be a big thing on the floor, but hopefully if you've done this right, no one will stand in it. Now one thing that you should note, and this did cause about 2 wipes for us on normal difficulty, is that he will do an Imploding Energy right between the 3rd Arcing Smash and the breath. So a lot of people would see the 3rd Arcing Smash, they move to the safe location, and then you get killed by Imploding Energy, which sucks. So what you want to do is get the Imploding Energy and then run to the safe part of the room. You should have plenty of time to do so though. So that's all good. Now after the 2nd breath he will move on to phase 2, and during this transition you should all just stack up on the main tank. That means that, well, pretty much you'll see when we get into phase 2. So phase 2, this is mechanically easy, but it does require solid coordination. Because, well, mechanically easy, it's simple, but if you screw it up you're all dead, it's that simple. Now he will do a frontal cleave that does heavy damage spread between everyone that's inside the cleave. This is why you want to be stacked up as soon as the phase starts to transition. Now all you need to do is stack in this, and players should always be stacked unless they get the next thing. Now he does a buff called Displaced Energy. This will do heavy damage every 3 seconds to you, and it lasts for 9 seconds. When it drops off or is dispelled, it does damage to everyone within 8 yards that doesn't have the debuff. So essentially what will happen is that when you see this debuff appear on you, you run out of the group, and then once it's dispelled you run back in. It's pretty simple. Now things to note, that, like healers, if you dispel this on a player that's inside the group, then you could cause a wipe. So you need to be sure that the people you're dispelling are outside of the main group. Now that's really it. You will get a few of these debuffs happen, and then it'll switch back to phase 1. This is a short phase, However, the healers really need to be on the ball with heavy AoE healing and heavy specific healing to the people that get that debuff. It's quite painful, but as long as you can make it through this, you pretty much have the fight. Now, at the very end of Phase 2, he will get a stacking buff that increases his damage by 25%. This will happen once per Phase 2, so pretty much the longer the fight goes on, then the more damage the boss does. This isn't really a massive problem though, because by the time this gets ultra scary, you will have hit the enrage anyway. Now, this does have a pretty solid 6-minute enrage timer. It's the sort of thing you will probably get him dead during or before the second time he goes into Phase 2. Now, in terms of things like positioning, I'd recommend that at the start of the raid you spread your group around the entire room. This means that you'll just have a nice default positioning and that everyone will be relatively close to an Imploding Energy during Phase 1. It's also pretty good if you can put down like an ox statue or something to mark a location that players can use to orientate themselves. This just means that after Phase 2 everyone will be able to go back to where they started. Other than that, there really aren't many tips for this fight. All I'd say is, if two people are running towards an Imploding Energy, just make sure there's someone in that, at least, even if it's two people, just as long as it doesn't hit the entire raid. That's one thing. You really need to be on the ball in Phase 2 if you get that debuff, because you could wipe your group. And with Breath of Yash, you need to be able to use your head as well. You can see where the 3 cones are, you will know where this is coming, but it's all just a good safety net to put those raid markers down so that people know where the safe areas are. And that's really it for the fight. We killed him on normal in about an hour or something like that. It wasn't a massive problem, and always it was just dumb shit and not adhering to the mechanics properly that killed us. But that's it for this fight on Flex. It should be pretty doable. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.